I'm about to show you something the media refuses to. Officer Corona, 23 years old and only on the force for 5 months. She was responding to a 3-car crash when speaking to one of the victims involved. A man unrelated to the accident approached her and opened fire without warning. She was the daughter of a cop and, according to her family, always wanted to be a police officer for as long as they could remember. Officer Ronald Singh, an immigrant from Fiji, married with a 5-month-old son, was on the force for 7 years. He was pulling over a suspected drunk driver, and while conducting the stop, was shot and killed by the driver, Paulo Mendoza, who was in the country illegally. Very familiar face here. Killed during the George Floyd riots, Captain David Dorn, retired police captain, father of 5, with 10 grandchildren. 10 grandchildren. He was protecting a pawn shop in St. Louis on the night he was killed. He knew the pawn shop owner, and he was shot and left on the sidewalk, left for dead. Officer David Dorn. Patrick Underwood, Federal Protection Services officer, was killed in Oakland, California while protecting a federal courthouse. Let me ask you this. Did Patrick Underwood's life or David Dorn's life matter? Because they do to me, and they do to many other people. This is Corporal Lorne Ahrens of the Dallas Police Department. This is Officer Michael Krall of the Dallas Police Department. Sergeant Michael Smith of the Dallas Police Department. And this is Officer Patricio Zamarripa of the Dallas Police Department. These officers were ambushed and murdered by a lone gunman who had a deep hatred for our men and women in blue. He had a deep hatred perpetuated by the divisiveness of Barack Obama and the BLM movement. The movement at the time was freely marching and chanting, "Pigs in a blanket, fry 'em like bacon," holding divisive marches where cops were spat on, attacked, and violence ensued. Barack Obama was no uniter. He was no one that cops looked up to or even could say good things about. In fact, when he attended the memorial service for these officers, these Dallas police officers that were killed over racial hatred, he said a quote that I want to repeat. He said, "There are legitimate issues that have been raised by BLM. And if police departments acknowledge them, they will contribute to real solutions." This man couldn't even take the time to make the ceremony about the officers killed without adding some sort of divisive rhetoric, which he's done many times in the past. It's not a time to defund the police. It's a time for real patriotic Americans to stand up and defend the police. Now, why did I hold up all four of these officers? I did because it has some really significant relevance to what is happening in this country right now. In 2016, these officers were killed after being ambushed by a gentleman who had an unfettered hatred for law enforcement across the country, spurred by the divisions not only created by Obama, but also the Black Lives Matter movement. When they chanted, "Pigs in a blanket, fry 'em like bacon," that was an inspirational quote to this gentleman, who carried out violent acts against numerous officers in Dallas in 2016, killing all four of these officers and one more officer. Barack Obama perpetuated division and hateful rhetoric towards the police officers in this country the entire time that he was in office. There's one point where Barack Obama is speaking to the families of the victims who were killed in the Dallas shootings, and he couldn't even stay off of a divisive topic other than promoting as well as legitimizing the actions of BLM and the division created before it. Here's a quote: "There are legitimate issues that had been raised by BLM, and if police departments acknowledge them, they will contribute to real solutions." He said this during the funeral of the 5 officers in Dallas that were killed. This was Barack Obama, a divider-in-chief and a divisive figure who lamented hate